Well, thank you to Justice and Pablo for hosting us today, and thank you to everyone for being here. Today's my first time meeting everyone, and I have to say that I'm truly privileged to be with you. I want to start off the discussion by introducing everyone and just to list some of your many accomplishments, and I would love it if you could tell us a little bit more about the organization and the department that you represent and what the focus is. So, Bradley here is the CEO of Cade Museum for Creativity and Invention. Before becoming the CEO, Mark has started his career at Infinite Energy, one of Southeast's leading natural gas providers, where he eventually became the vice president and grew the company from 100 million to 600 million in revenue. After leaving Infinite Energy, Bradley founded the Selling Factory, which deployed over 1,000 college students, transforming their lives by preparing them with sales and communication skills, all the while helping over 150 businesses. Thank you for being here, Bradley.
Thank you.
Mark is the Sachio Somoto Chair of the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Florida, a distinguished professor at the university, the Intel Charles E. Young Preeminence Endowed Chair Professor in Cybersecurity, and the list goes on. Outside of the many positions Mark currently holds, he has published 700 journal and refereed conference papers, issued 26 patents with 27 more pending. Oh, and 2 of his 19 books are textbooks being taught across campuses. Thank you for being here today, Mark. Last but not least, Paul is currently the CEO of Florida High-Tech Corridor. Before joining this position, Paul had spent more than 3 decades of service in the U.S. Navy. Round of applause. Thank you for your service.
And we're 250 years old this year.
He commanded several high-profile organizations, such as Navy's Operational Test and Evaluation Force, as well as the Naval Aviation Fleet Readiness Center, where he was responsible for overseeing a workforce of over 16,000 and an operating budget of $2.9 billion. Before joining the Navy, Paul graduated from MIT studying aerospace, aeronautical, and astronautical engineering, and completed a master's degree in the same field at Stanford while in the Navy. Paul, let's start with you. Could you please tell us a little bit about Florida High-Tech Corridor?
Yeah, sure. And I want my hats off to the diehards, right? You're here, so thank you for being part of the crowd, especially to the students and the young founders. The corridor is here for the founders. That's why we exist. We will turn 30 next year. We were the brainchild of the 3 universities, UCF, USF, and UF, as well as some business folks who 30 years ago said there's this interesting I-4 corridor between Tampa, St. Pete, and the Space Coast that we think if we don't do something, we're not going to be able to keep the young tech businesses and grow the tech field where we think we have an opportunity to do that. I came in 5 years ago. We absolutely stand on those giants of those early creators of what the high-tech corridor is, and we challenge that status quo every day. My 3 board co-chairs, what's really fun about the corridor, and then I'll stop, is we're like this sandbox. My 3 co-chairs are the president of UF, president of UCF, and president of USF. They are a little busy running universities, which makes it fun. And one of the things I heard earlier today about having things be fun, it needs to be fun. And we're here to support those founders through research, through grants, all sorts of different things that we can do, and invest in things like the Cade. Because you were in grade school at some point with an idea. And that's one of the things we invest in as well, because that's what makes Florida just super special.
Bradley?
So, real quick, kind of a surreal moment with the last panel. This is the power of never burning a bridge. My first job out of college was at Infinite Energy, working for Rich Blazer. And in the bio it said that I grew the company to 600 million. No. We grew the company to 600 million. My first company, my company that I started in 2016, my first customer was a B with Fracture, who was referred to me by Rich, my first boss at the first company I worked for. So, just goes to show, don't ever burn bridges at all in your career. So I joined Cade in actually 18 months ago, and the Cade Museum is named after Dr. Robert Cade, who invented Gatorade at the University of Florida in 1965. If anybody was at the football game 2 weeks ago, the one that we won, yes, against Texas, you probably saw a lot of Gatorade stuff going on. So yes, October 2nd, 1965 was the first use of Gatorade here at Florida Field, and we were celebrating that at the Cade Museum alongside with the University of Florida. In addition to the Cade Museum, we also have our Inventivity Labs, where we design, test, and deploy invention theme education and curriculum for our next generation, really trying to inspire creativity, especially in the world of AI that we're in right now. How do we keep kids curious? That's what we do. We also have the Cade Prize for Inventivity, which was actually 2 nights ago I think it was, where we gave away, or we awarded $100,000 to 5 startups. This is our 16th year doing it now, and we're approaching about $1 million that we have no strings attached investment into. Now it's 87 companies. It's through an award system. We are a nonprofit. We are not an investment firm. We're not a VC firm, but we are charged with making sure that we are inspiring the next generation of inventors and entrepreneurs to help them on their journey.
Thank you. And Mark?
So I come in from a different angle, from a different group of individuals who are not necessarily represented well here. Historically, you don't associate professors with entrepreneur, right? So I may be an outlier. So I have about 7 companies now in my portfolio. I have a reputation that I tell people all the time. 2 of my companies failed, so I learned a ton out of it. So you hear a lot today here about, the numbers, how great things are, etc. But we don't often talk about the struggles and the challenges that startup founders have to go through. So being on the academic side, I learned over time not just to become an entrepreneur, which is really a struggle when you're a full-time professor and chair of a department managing 2,000 students and more than 120 staff and professors. That itself is a challenge, but also try to be an entrepreneur, be out there and be able to raise money and grow your company. So one of my company called Caspio Technologies, we finished seed round now. Actually, we're about to finish Series A. We're about 40 people, a lot of PhDs. We develop solutions for microelectronics security. So our customers are the Qualcomm and Intel of the world, basically. And I was adamant to keep it here, even though it makes a lot of sense for us actually to move to Silicon Valley, given the nature of the technology that we develop. But I was never born in Florida, but I'm a big believer in Florida. So I said all of this because, as I said, I sit in a seat which is different than many of the folks who talk here. I get to, given my hat and multiple things that I do, I get to actually work with some of the most talented individuals on planet Earth. And those are Florida students, University of Florida students. I hope if there are folks from other schools, UCF is great, USF is great, or no offense, but UF students, my opinion, are better than Stanford and Berkeley. Period. Okay? And with that belief, basically, let me give it. My department graduated Chris Malachowski. My department graduates Sachio Somoto, who is a titan in Japan. Okay, build a company, just 17 companies. One of them is KDDI, which is $125 billion. Chris Malachowski is nothing, is a change, right? $4.5 trillion company, and many others. And I walk around and I look at some of these students that are actually in our department and I say, can I make the next Chris Malachowski? It's my responsibility, right? So yes, we can talk about Florida ecosystem. The Florida ecosystem includes what? It includes investors. It includes a state that have the right tax and a lot of other things that actually allows folks to actually build a company or move the company here. But for me, the most important thing in the state of Florida is our talents. And we have an untapped opportunity. If you look at the state of California over the past 10 years, I think they developed somewhere around 200 to 400 unicorns. Does anybody know how many unicorns came out of the state of Florida in the past 10 years? Just give me a number. 11. We are the third largest state in the country. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, we are at the bottom of the barrel. Berkeley, number one in the country when it comes to University of Berkeley. In the country when it comes to entrepreneurship and the number of companies that they make, Stanford second, MIT, Cornell, name it. Does anybody know University of Florida and what is ranked in the country? We are the third largest state in the country. 51. So as much as I can sit here and complain about how bad things are, which, look, we can talk about how great the state of Florida is, but when it comes to entrepreneurship, we're not that great. But at the same time, I see opportunity because I see those talents. I see the state that is willing now to invest. I see a state that actually gets more billionaire moved to the state of Florida, which means there's a lot more opportunities for investment. And also folks who are coming from California, which my opinion is great. Why? Because the investors are not, two investors are not alike. California investors are different than Florida investors. California investors are exit-oriented investors, where a lot of Florida investors, they're more like lifestyle type company investors that are completely different. Okay, so I know I jumped around quite a bit. I just want to give a bit of a context from an educational point of view. And being a professor and dealing with students, and students who have the talent to be the next Steve Jobs and Chris Malachowski and Jensen Huang, etc., that it is up to me and us to be able to identify them and put them in a position to be able to succeed. So I do have one company over there, and then another company called KDD, which basically is a startup studio. And this startup studio takes in actually some of these founders through a selection process, and then is able to groom them and get them to become the next big founder. So we've done that last year. Now we have raised more money to be able to do this more systematically this year. So if anybody from University of Florida is interested to build the next big company, just come talk to me. Happy to talk to you about this studio and what we could do. And I have some of our founders actually sitting here, and there were more of them around the room today. So happy to talk to you more about this. But again, my angle as well as university founders, where they could be the next Mark Zuckerberg of the world. That my hope is that they're coming out of Florida.
No, thank you so much for that, Mark. And just really quickly on myself, so I'm an investment associate at Lead VC. Lead stands for the legacy of Audi Dassler, the founder of Adidas. We're founded by the Adidas family with support from institutional investors as well as professional athletes. We invest in all things sports, health, wellness, as well as sports team opportunistically. So if you're ever building in those spaces, come and chat with me. Quickly to follow up on that comment, Mark, and this is also a question for the panel. In your opinion, what are some unique opportunities for the Florida region, but also challenges that need to be addressed to become the next, Silicon Valley or Boston?
Mark, maybe you should take
So yeah, so from my perspective, one of the biggest just superpowers that we have as a state, and I look to the founders and see the creative nature of who you are and what you are. The corridor is not a what, it's a who. It's who in these 23 counties, and that not a whole lot of people from Florida. So when you get the people here who are asking each other, hey, what do you do? I think you're naturally curious to be able to do that. And then you couple that with, and I will highlight Osceola County and Neo City, which won one of the NSF Regional Innovation Engine grants in semiconductors, where I guarantee you there were probably 90% of the people in Florida going, wait a minute, Florida and semiconductors and advanced packaging, what does that mean? You're able to think and say, no, we can see this. We know where this is headed. And that goes back, Mark, to your point about the talent. I think there's a special aspect of talent that is unique in Florida, unique for students that come to Florida universities that make them extra special.
Great.
So anybody I know that knows more about the Florida Tech landscape than Paul. So my angle is going to be talking about the support structure for entrepreneurs in terms of our next generation workforce. And so I know we focus a lot on entrepreneurs that are building companies. What I see and what makes me a little nervous is what is happening to those thousands and thousands of graduates that are coming out of school today that traditionally would go to Deloitte. They would go to PwC, who's a sponsor. Thank you, PwC. They would go to EY, Apple, Google. Well, a lot of these jobs are going away. We have an opportunity with all the entrepreneurship that is happening in the state of Florida to fuel these companies with this next generation. I'm where I live now is in the 3rd grade to 9th to 10th grade range. So how can we prepare our students today, our young minds today, to have that curiosity, that courage, that resilience, to get to the point where they say, you know what, I'm going to go to university, or maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm going to find a startup community that I can join at 18 years old, anywhere in the state of Florida, and let these individuals, these young people that are coming out, be able to support all the entrepreneurship, or all the entrepreneurs that are starting companies in here. So I really think that support structure is an opportunity in the state of Florida. It is not talked about a lot, but we have to make sure that our kids in high school, coming out of college, have a place to land, and it's not what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, if I could tell a story first before I answer that question. So, I know the reason I'm a big believer in our talent is because my kids went to high school here in Gainesville, and I joke around and tell people all the time that unless you're my kid and you want to stay away from me for as long and as far as it gets, you come to University of Florida. Because when I look at the top graduates from these high schools, I used to go to these ceremonies and they would say, call my daughter named Bahar Teranipur, and she goes to Cornell, and then the next one, these are all top graduates, they come to UF. And I was telling my wife, who works also for University of Florida, can you believe that these are the best talents that are coming to UF? And what we're doing, we're basically just making them to make sure they get GPA 4.0. So I had a conversation with my daughter one day when she was in Cornell, and she was doing all sorts of stuff in Cornell, and I wasn't so sure whether she actually has time to study. So I asked her one day, and I said, do you get to study at all? And she looks at me and said that, do you want 3.7 GPA? And I do all of this? And all of this means she was president of a couple of, she was president of an app development team. She was here. She was basically just active in all sorts of school-related activities. And that was great, but I was worried about whether she actually get to the classes. Or do you want me to have a GPA of 3.8 and do nothing? And basically what she was saying to me is that, look, the 0.1, 0.2 is the differentiator for me to actually do a ton and develop all of that soft skills. I took that lesson to heart. She finished at 2.86, and she did all of that. I took that hard when I was basically selecting my entrepreneurs for my first basically series of company and develop. These founders remember one question I asked them. I asked them, would you be okay if your GPA gets hit by 0.4 or 0.3? But you become a founder of a successful company. If anybody had even a small second to pause, I would not take that as student. And these guys never doubted even for a second. And I love that. And the reason I say is that we have talent, but we don't have entrepreneurial culture. So if you go to Stanford, they're doing the best they can in their classroom, but they're also sitting on the lawn and developing their companies. But if you go to UF, you will see everybody's on the lawn, but they're trying to just get a better grade. It's the culture that we need to start to think. That how do we make our students to not to worry so much about 2.4, 2.9, or 2.85, rather than who cares? Hey, this is not the best message from a chair of a department. I think my university president may come to me and say, Mark, what the hell are you doing? Right? But take the 3.8, but do more soft skills. Take the 3.8 and become an entrepreneur, because it serves you much better. Even if you do not succeed in building a company that is going to sell billions of dollars, but what you learn through building that company it's gonna serve you for the rest of your life. And once you're entrepreneur, most likely you remain entrepreneur for life.
No, thank you so much, Mark. And I completely echo the difference in culture. I had gone to UC Berkeley myself, and after being accepted into the business program as a sophomore, the first class that I had to take, business and communication, we all had to create our own pitch and pitch to actual VCs. That was the first class that we had to take as business majors. Paul, this is a question for you. So, many people today, the speed of innovation can feel very overwhelming as AI keeps growing at an exponential rate. What advice do you have for people at different stages in their careers as you think about preparing Florida's next generation of talent?
Yeah, because I feel like that innovation is accelerating, and me personally, my brain is slowing down. So how do I handle that? It's tough. A couple of things. One of the things from a leadership perspective that I heard this morning that I think is really important to kind of foot stomp on, especially from the founders that you heard, one is courage. So as things are accelerating, you have to have courage to be able to do what you do, stick with it, don't quit, all those pieces. I think you need compassion. I think you need and compassion to me starts with yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace as you're trying to do the entrepreneurship thing and keep the grade point up and do everything else that you need to do. It's one message I heard all day long. This is not easy. And to be able to have that compassion. And maybe the third thing is when things are accelerating so quickly that I heard this morning, and I believe it from a Navy perspective, it really is all about character. To me, it's about, you have to have in your head what it means to have good character, because you will be asked. We used to tell our young officers who were then going to take their first commands, you have no idea what you're going to do when that first thing from left field comes at you that wasn't in a book, that was you never experienced it as a youngster. And now all of a sudden you're in the chair and you got to answer that question. And I think ultimately that comes down to character. So if you can have kind of those values, it was said earlier, have those values as things speed up, that's something you can fall back on.
Thank you. Bradley, one question for you is, traditionally, I think before the AI era, many people prioritize specialization over being multidisciplinary. In today's rapidly evolving tech landscape, how do you see the balance shifting between deep specialization and being multidisciplinary?
Yeah, you were told, 15 years ago, learn the code. That's all you have to learn how to do, and you'll be fine. Or learn how to sell, because if you can sell, you don't have to do it. You'll be fine. And I started to see this in my last company where we hired 1,000 to 1,200 college students and taught them how to sell. What we found is that originally we were thinking we need to hire business majors because business majors think about sales, therefore they're going to make the best business people. They can sell. We found actually that our best sellers, our best students, performance-wise, came from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. It was our sociology majors, it was our philosophy majors, it was our chemistry majors, those that learned how to write, that learned how to communicate, that learned how to debate. So a lot of times people think, if you're going to College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, you better get your doctorate in something or become a lawyer or go to grad school, otherwise you're not going to have a job. Totally untrue. I think that having a wide swath of skills spanning different, whether it's different fields of study, it could be different parts of creativity. I mean, if you're a couple of years ago, when I was hitting kind of a creative block, I taught myself how to write, how to be a copywriter. I'd never done that before. And so that's been really stimulating, and just learning just a brand new skill at 46 years old, which you can do that today. Anybody can do that at any age. So I really think that, yes, you want to have something that you're better at than the majority of the people that might be vying for your job or building companies around you. However, you need to develop those other skills, especially on the creative side. It's only gonna help.
Yeah. And one thing that stood out to me when researching Cade Museum is its focus on STEAM education. In your opinion, why is art so important, and especially in today's world where we're having to ask questions like, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah, 100%. So we hear about STEM. We've heard about STEM for years. We really celebrate STEAM and with a big capital A in the middle of that. I didn't recognize how important this was until I started with the Cade about a year and a half ago. And it just so happens that Dr. Cade, who invented Gatorade, he was a nephrologist. He was a medical doctor. He was a brilliant man, inventor. He was also a violinist. He was also hybridized roses. He was really creative. And you'll find that looking back in history at inventors, Nobel Prize winners, most of them are super creative. They're musicians, they're painters, they're writers, they're poets. Oh, Dr. Cade was a poet as well. So when you think about weaving in the arts, which could be anything creative like that, it really helps that side of your brain, which is why we really focus on that at the Cade Museum. I mean, all of our curriculum, all of our invention theme exhibits, everything that we have has an element of art to it, because we think that's absolutely vital.
No, thank you. Mark, this is a question for you. So one area in AI, and I know you're a cybersecurity expert, but one area that I've been super fascinated by is, LLM's inability to distinguish between benign and malicious instructions, leading to what some call the lethal trifecta of AI, where if you combine access to your private data, the ability to externally communicate, and exposure to untrustworthy content. For example, email saying, send me Kaiwen's password, and I have my AI agent read it and actually follow instructions. And just last week, OpenAI announced that apps like Zillow and Spotify can now be used inside ChatGPT. And it is not far-fetched to think that one day people will tell their AI agents to place trades based on the latest news. How much of a concern is that? And if not, what are some other security threats that UF and the Florida region should be focused on?
Okay, we're getting too technical. Look, AI has changed the both side of the aisle when it comes to cybersecurity, the offensive as well as the defensive approaches that we have. So I'll give you an example. I have a large team of researchers in my group that they work on developing methodologies to detect vulnerabilities, I know is a mouthful, in microelectronic architectures. And for us to be able to provide proof of concept, we needed two of my students and one of my colleagues' students to work together to actually inject those vulnerabilities into a number of chips. And every month or two, we were able to show that, yes, we just got a new vulnerability finally injected at the right place, and now let's go and apply our tool to see if we can detect it. We did it for about a year or 18 months, and we were able to get 6 to 10 of these vulnerabilities injected. While we were doing this at the same time with large language models, we also were working at the same time very early on ChatGPT 2, before 3 in 2023 becomes such a big thing, and then we transitioned to that quickly. We were able to actually inject 10,000 vulnerabilities in less than a few hours. I was joking with my students, you guys are all fired. That's what LLM does to you if you learn how to work with it. So then that was an offensive approach, basically, in a sense that we were training large language models to be able to think like a hacker, an attacker, to take a vulnerability and go position it at the right place and carry the right objective, and so on and so forth. 10,000 in few hours, 6 or 10, I don't remember exact number, in about 12 months plus, with some of the most smartest kids we had as a PhD student. You could see the difference, right? So yeah, it has changed the way we actually think about security quite a bit. With regard to defensive approach, the same way as well. You actually can use the power of large language models in general, AI, in particular, to be able to actually develop mechanisms that they perform your detection much better. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to security or cybersecurity, you're looking at anomalies. Anomalies don't happen where everybody is looking at, because if that's the case, you find them much quicker. The difficult cybersecurity problems are the ones that you're going to have to basically look what we call them corner cases. Cases that are hard to see, hard to find, hard to check. And that's where you need really good solutions in place. And AI and large language models are actually really revolutionizing the way we're able to expedite the detection. But at the same time, when it's a cat and mouse game. So when now you use AI to help you detect, well, there's another guy who uses AI to be able to test your detection capability to come up with the new vulnerability that can go undetected again, and this continues. Bottom line, everybody wins, but I do think that the defense team actually wins a lot more than the offense. I use an analogy of 95 plus 5, where with the AI probably is 99 plus 1. And that is, if you could detect 99% of cybersecurity problems and there's one left, sometimes good for the attacker to put that much effort to get that one out too, that you didn't know. You did whatever you could, but you couldn't detect it, and somebody else somehow so creatively, right, was able to detect it. But in the past, we used to say 95 plus 5, just because back then there was a lot more difficulty detecting it. The point I'm making is that both sides are actually winning. It really depends on whom you're talking to. Folks like EveryKey, they have their interest in technologies. They provide solutions. If I have that solution, all I can do is that I just basically try to see if I can hack it, right? Because that's what we do. 75% of my research is on hacking, 25% is actually on developing solutions to address it, because hacking is much more fun. But that solution is great because it allows you to be able to simplify the password remembering problem and all the other things that you have to deal with. So amazing technology, but it could have issues here and there, which AI could potentially come in and help you to be able to hack it. So I think that it has changed the way the mouse and cat game that's happening for years, right? And it's change in the future as well as we continue to develop better algorithms.
No, thank you so much for that insight, Mark. Well, for all the cybersecurity students out there, now you know what to do and what to build. Looks like we're out of time, so thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. Let's give all the panelists a round of applause.
Thank you.